Welcome to those who are just coming in and joining us. My name is Alicia Hoflick-Moore. I'm the room chair for this session. It is my great privilege to be introducing our next speaker, Samantha Schumacher from Target. We will have some time reserved at the end for questions, so please either submit them online or raise your hand when we're done, and a room runner will run a mic to you to amplify your voice. So go ahead.
All right, we're gonna get started here. I promise you're in the right room. Whether you think you're in the right room or not, this is the place you're supposed to be. It's a little bit after lunch. We're gonna move our bodies just a tiny little bit. Don't worry, it's not gonna be weird unless you make it weird. I want you to put your hands in front of you and make little sparkles. Imagine they're like little GenAI sparkles. Oh, you guys are doing great. Okay, bring your sparkles up in the air. Oh, you can all raise your hands. I love that. Okay, now wiggle your toes just a little bit. Okay, now you can relax. You've done it. Okay, I'm gonna talk to you about Target. Target is a retailer that exists all throughout the United States and not anywhere else. But there is a Target, odds are, within 10 miles of your house. And particularly if you are in this room, there's probably 2 or 3 Targets within 10 miles of your house. I am first curious, before I jump in, who has shopped at a Target? Oh, fabulous. Who has purchased something that wasn't on their list when they shopped at a Target? So this is really great. We really love that. Thank you for doing that. Please continue to do that. One of my jobs today is to help you find the thing that you didn't know you needed, but in fact you totally need, and it's gonna make your day better, and it's gonna make your family happier, and it's gonna make your kids more excited to see you coming home with Target bags. The next thing I want to ask is who has a Target app on their phone? Who has downloaded the Target app? Who knows that they are in Circle? That's Target's loyalty program. That's really good, actually. Okay, fantastic. Okay, you can relax. And now, just for honesty's sake, we are in the home of Target headquarters. Who currently works for Target? Who has previously worked for Target? Fantastic. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so now we're gonna jump in, and I'm gonna talk to you about powering personalization with data sciences at Target. Why am I here talking to you about this? If I could edit this slightly, I would say marketing personalization at Target. So most of what I'm going to be talking to you about is about marketing, not just all of the elements of personalization that you might see as you move through the app. So I'm gonna add that little clarifier on the top. I am a senior director of data sciences in Target. I've been at Target for 11 years. I've done a whole bunch of stuff at Target, but been marketing for a while now. I love this conference. One of my favorite things about being in this room is that most of the people on this side of the room have to look over there. And most of the people on this side of the room have to look over there, so you're almost looking at each other. Right? So what I want you to do, all of you women, is to look across the room and try and find somebody who's looking the other way. Just give them a little, hi, I'm glad you're here. A little smile, a little wave. Yay, okay, right? This is one of my favorite things, because this almost never happens, where we're sort of forced to acknowledge that there's other people in the audience with us. This is really important to me, because what my team does most is we think about our guests. We think about each one of you and what makes you uniquely different from the person that sits next to you, and why you might shop at Target, and what do you shop for versus what do they shop for. So each of you is a little bit different here. So, quoting the favorite expert in all of marketing everywhere is Peter Drucker. He says, the aim of marketing is to know and understand the consumer so well that the product or service fits him and sells itself. Which is like kind of an ideal, right? Because if you're the person who has to do the marketing, it's a really good deal to say, actually, the reason that this isn't selling is because you designed it wrong. Right? It's not my fault that I didn't get the message to the right people. It's your fault that you didn't design the right Cat and Jack clothing. But that's not really all there is to it, because we're trying to know about our guests and what do they need and who are they, and who they are looks very different than who they were 2 years ago. One of the biggest things that my team does is we support audience selection for all of Target for all of our marketing. We do this by matching each campaign to its highest value guest, to its highest value audience. And we know a lot about our guests. We are predicting which guests will respond best to which campaigns. We do this by knowing device-specific interests and affinities. So when you are sitting on your couch scrolling at night, you have a different idea perhaps of what you're doing than when you jump on the website at work and you're ordering that thing to get delivered to your house before you get home, right? Your intents are different. You are functioning with Target differently if you're scrolling or not scrolling. We know what your personal brand engagement is, and I'm not saying with Target, I'm saying with all of the brands that we have. We know if you're an Apple consumer or a Dell consumer or a Microsoft consumer. We know how much you love Cat and Jack for your kids, or how much you really haven't tried Favorite Day ever, and you probably should because it's freaking amazing and it's delightful. So go buy some treats. We know about what's going on in your household. We have some idea of who is there, of who is doing the shopping. Did that change recently? We understand what your redemption modeling is, what your likelihood to shop is, and what your spend predictions are, which means I know in the next 2 weeks how likely it is that you're gonna go to a Target, and I have a pretty good idea of how much I think you're gonna spend when you go there. And so if I wanna give you an incentive to spend a little bit more, I have to be able to guess what I think you're gonna do. Are we right all the time? No. Am I secretly stealing your data? I am not doing that either, right? What we are doing is we are using the sales information that we have from you that's perhaps attached to your red card, attached to your circle browsing, or attached to whatever credit card you decide to use at Target, and we're using that information to make inferences about how you're going to behave in the future, right? The goal is to be comforting, not creepy. Now, this is a good time for me to say, I have a PhD in applied math, and one of our favorite things to do in mathematics is to take a really complicated problem that we have no idea how to solve, and we transform it into a different space, often a metric space, and suddenly the thing is really easy to solve. So you probably all did this at some point in undergraduate when you took like the log of something, and suddenly you can add things instead of having to multiply them, and that sort of made some magic. Or I can plot a whole set of systems into circles or map it onto the sphere, and suddenly things look really crystal clear. So this is what we do when we love things. As a mathematician, when I love things, I put them in a metric space. And so one of the things that we do with every one of our guests is we turn them into a vector because we love them. And we want to have the fastest possible way to compare guests between each other and to have a good sense of what those guests like and what they want, so that we can quickly give you the search results you need or the right marketing offers that you have. Okay, so we are, let's see if this all works. Great, it does. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna connect guests to what you shop with. And the most important thing, don't worry, I'll play this again, it goes really fast because generative AI can only make 8-second long things. So we're gonna watch this more than once. Back. We watch Samantha, there we go. Okay, so we're gonna connect our guests to their basket. We're gonna consider how does that change over time. We're gonna stick that in a connected graph network, and we're gonna be able to compare you across other graphs and across time at the same time, which is only possible because we function at scale, because we have so many guests and we have so much information about what our guests are doing. And why is this necessary? Well, one of the biggest things that we want to know when we think about you as our guests is this is often tied to loyalty programs. And so I want to talk a little bit about loyalty programs and how they came to be. So initially, in the 90s, as many of us are familiar with, you got little keychains with barcodes on them that kept track of your points at your favorite retailers. And you probably had dozens of these on your keychain that you tracked with, and you allowed the company to track which orders came with your thing, because every time you spent $100, you got $5 back or something. This got a little bit fancier. We eventually had business rules-based gamifications. We also moved them onto our phones. That was a pretty big deal, that now I can engage with you in some kind of a dynamic way. From there, we started looking at decision tree modeling. We upgraded things just a little bit more so that we started to say, okay, if you engaged with this, now I'm gonna show you that. If you engaged with this, now I'm gonna show you that. Maybe I'm gonna have a more engaged section and a less engaged section. After that, we started using machine learning models for microsegmentation and personalization. And this is maybe a really great point that I want to call out, the distinction that I am personally making between generative AI and machine learning. When I think about generative AI, I'm talking about an LLM. I'm talking about a tokenized use case with a generative model that's going to generate some kind of English language response or some kind of mathematical response. When I'm thinking about ML or sort of basic AI, right? This is where I'm thinking about what you can learn in school, what you can do on a single laptop. This is, gradient boosted trees. This is all of those pieces of technology that existed prior to 3 years ago. So that's what's happening here. Now, what we would like to do is we would like to take guest embeddings so that each offer is truly personalized, so that what you receive truly looks different than what the person next to you. This is not just segmentation, but it is actual personalization with this work. So how are we going to do that? This is the mathiest part of the talk. So if you are interested in learning about mathy technical details, this next 5 to 10 minutes is for you. If you are not interested to that, I promise I'll let you know when we make it through and you can come back. But we're going to do it in pictures. So, there's something for everybody. We're going to look at something called a temporal graph network. This is an idea that we have of how we want to think about creating an embedding for our guests at Target. The way that this works is we're going to take different nodes of a guest, in this case G1, and how they have interacted with our various categories. So maybe we have some F&B essentials, we have some hard lines, maybe we have some favorite day coming up, toys, and some essential and beauty products. I'm going to draw a dashed line every time you browse the product on any site where you are logged in, and I'm going to pick a solid pink line anytime you purchase something. So on day one, you came into Target, you probably walked through the aisles, maybe you browsed a couple of things on your phone, you decided, yes, I browsed those headphones and I'm going to buy them. I'm also going to buy my milk because I know I need that, I don't need to browse anything for that. I looked at these towels and they were really, really pretty, but I don't know, it wasn't in the budget today, so I didn't get them. Day two, nothing happens. And this is one of the reasons why a graph network is so critical. Graph networks have a fundamental ability for dealing with sparse data. When you're dealing with any other kind of data, you often need to apply a principal component analysis, or you need to do something else to it because it is so sparse, and sparse matrix multiplication is really hard and not super valuable. And one of the things that graph networks do is they handle that sparse data incredibly well. So in situations like this, where a bunch of the days you don't come to Target, unless there's probably somebody out there who's like, I go to Target every day, at which point, thank you very much. Please keep doing that. On day three, our guest comes back in and buys their milk again. Fabulous, we're glad to see you, thank you so much. Day four, we've got nothing. Day five, we're back to buy our milk, and we're also looking at those towels again. Now, if I was watching this, I might say, give this guest a 5% off coupon for those towels. Whatever it is, like they are interested in these towels, and if we wait too much longer, they're gonna go buy them from someone else. So let me give you a quick coupon to help you overcome whatever worries that you have about these towels so that you go ahead and give them a try. Now, when I think about this, what I have shown you is a graph that changes over time. The reason we call it a temporal graph network is because we're gonna take this and we're gonna stick it on a timeline. And this is our graph. Our graph isn't one point in time, our graph is all points in time. And by using this, what we're going to get is we're going to get a blend of signals, both about what did you actually do, and also about the pattern of how you did it. So we might be able to say, oh, this person shops in different categories, but they shop similarly, right? They browse the web 2 or 3 times and then they purchase, versus somebody who never browses and just purchases, right? I can start to learn, how do you personally enjoy engaging with Target, and how can I help make that easier for you? Okay, now how do we actually do this though, right? This is like the chalkboard sketch of what's happening. In order to do this at scale, as I said, we have a lot of targets, we have a lot of guests, we have a lot of purchases, and we have a lot of browse. When we start looking at this, it gets really, really big. Each training run encompasses challenge at scale. We have more than a terabyte of data. We have 37 billion edges. This is 150 million guest nodes, right? These are not small numbers. I do not recommend trying to do this on the laptop that you bought to go to graduate school. That is not what this is about. This is a really great time to have an infrastructure team supporting you. This is a really great time to get some data engineers on your team and make sure that you're making the right choices about how big your edge nodes are and how big your file sizes are and what's the right way to do this and should it be Spark or something else, right? Do not go into this activity without pre-planning. Once you have pre-planned though, you have to deal with this for every single epoch of your training data. Luckily, we found that we don't need hundreds of epochs, so that's really great because this takes a really long time. Now, this is a theory that we have. And one of the things that I absolutely love about working for a company like Target is that we have a technical belief in what we think is the next best way to solve a problem. We are not the first people to solve the problem in this way. Other people have done it, but we think it's gonna work for our system and we're willing to give it a shot, right? This is one of the benefits for those of you, I know there's some students out there, for those of you who are interested in what kind of a company should I aim for? Should I look for government? Should I look for not government? If you find yourself in a larger company, there is often space for this kind of, dare I say, research, right? We're going to see if this works. We have a reasonable belief that this is a good idea to try, and we have a little bit of bandwidth to prove that it's true. Now, if your results are terrible, don't worry, you're gonna quickly lose your ability to work on that project. But there is a little bit of extra space for you to go and explore and try something new, because if this does work, it's going to replace 3 or 4 different products that we have in my ecosystem, all of which have maintenance costs, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why we're here, that's what we're doing. Let's pretend like it's done, because that's way more fun than pretending like it's not done. We're gonna pretend like we have this. I have a perfect vector of each and every one of you who has ever been to Target, and I know how you connect together, and I know which one of you are browsers and which one of you are purchasers and all of those things. Now what do? Now I want to incentivize you to spend money at Target, because that's actually what Target is, right? We want you to have joy in your life because you're shopping at Target, but we also ultimately need you to buy things from us because that's the business model that we have. So how do I do that? I'm gonna do that by promoting items to you. I wanna promote the right guest, the right offer at the right time. I wanna stretch every markdown dollar that Target gives you to inspire you to buy the things, hopefully, that you need and that you want and that will bring your family joy. So how do I do this? We have to drive the efficient use of markdown dollars. We have to identify what those customized orders are so that each one of you is inspired to say, I do have $5 extra for that adorable pumpkin that I can put on my front porch. Okay, I'm gonna pick that one up today and put that in my cart. So how do we do that? We have a promo offer engine, which is defined by this wonderful funnel full of mathematics. We're just gonna let that be for now. We're not gonna go into great depth of what that looked like, although I promise you the science is super fun. What do we look at? We look at different campaign parameters. What are the offer dates? What kind of budget do I have? Is it a lot of money? Is it not so much money? What kind of guests and objectives do I have? And from there, we pull out what we think makes the most sense for every guest. So each guest may get a different type of offer. For those of you who have that Target app, when you click on that center button that says wallet and you have a set of circle offers available to you, some of those are going to be the same for the person sitting next to you, and some of those are going to be personalized just for you. So you may find, if you're an avid comparer of deals like I am, that your friend got $5 off of 20 and you got $10 off of 40. What gives? That's like the same percentage, but yours is a bigger number. That's because we believe that you're likely to spend more at Target, right? We're hopefully inspiring you with a little goodie for picking up that pumpkin, because then you can start to tell yourself a story about, oh God, I love that pumpkin. And if I just put that in my cart, then I get $5 back. So Target's basically paying me to buy this pumpkin. I'm doing it, right? That's what we love. That's fun. That's a really fun way to shop. So this is what we're doing for our promo optimization. Next up. So now we have, I know about you, I know what you like, I know how to give you something that will hopefully inspire you to pick up a pumpkin when you weren't planning to pick up a pumpkin. Now, people don't buy products. They buy brands that align with their ideal self-image. Okay, this is the time I get to be really real with you guys. I didn't grow up as a mathematician. I became a mathematician in my 20s. Before that, I was in the arts. I was a theater major, which means I have a really wonderful time being on this stage, so thank you all for letting me live out my acting dreams that were not possible because I wasn't actually a very good actress. But when I was attempting to be a very good actress, one of the things that they taught me was they said, if you are in an advertisement, if you're in a commercial, your job is not to sell the product. Your job is to be the person that you become when you buy this product. Because people are gonna look at you and say, oh, she's so put together. If only I had XYZ, I would also be put together, right? This is exactly the same story. We're gonna buy products that align with our ideal self-image. Okay, how are we gonna do this? We're gonna do this by building content. We're gonna create content that connects with our guests. We are going to support efficiency and scale by creating automated content creation so that the most relevant content is available for you. And this is a little bit different than some of the stories that we've been hearing today, because this is a very pro GenAI story that we're talking about here. And let me talk you through why I think this is relevant. Currently, the state of our campaigns is we have one-to-one guest pairing. I have a campaign, say summer. I have one piece of content that all guests are eligible to receive, and that's this person in denim with some gloves and Discover Your Green Thumb from $7. Now in the future, I might create 4 different versions of this content. This might look like somebody gardening on the deck of their apartment versus someone gardening in rural Kansas versus someone, right? I might use the information I have about you, i.e. your zip code, to say they're likely living in downtown Minneapolis or they're likely living in the suburbs. And can I show you that these gardening supplies fit well with your life regardless of where you live, right? This is designed to say, to give less cognitive work on your part and to help you believe that this is an appropriate product. Now, this might make more sense if we're talking about a lamp or something that where you actually want it to fit your aesthetic, right? But it's gonna work here too, right? Because if I'm gonna try and sell you a lawnmower and you live in an apartment in downtown Minneapolis, obviously I've missed the mark. Okay, we have used a little bit of GenAI to try and talk about what this would look like for video personalization. This is a proof of concept only, but I think it tells a really great message. Here we have our puppy, very happy puppy. Oh, so cute, snuggles, happy dog, happy people, 10% off pets. So sweet, right? I think this really hits the mark. Now, maybe you're not a dog person, maybe you're a cat person. And by the way, this is one of the single most anecdotal complaints that I've ever heard, is people who say, I only have cats. Target, you know I have cats because I only ever buy cat food. Why do you keep sending me pictures of dogs? Like, why? And so for you, oh cat person, what would the cat version of this look like? Now, cats are very different than dogs. Here's some happy cats, not snuggling, eating on the rug. Here's their cat mom. $10 off pets. No happy cat, happy people. That would not ring the same way as happy dog, happy people, right? We know that we can personalize this experience to really reach you where you're at. Are you a Swiftie fan? Can I make you a special Swiftie piece of content to welcome you onto the Target page? How can I really make it fun that you feel like, yeah, Target knows what they should know about me, and they're trying to make my life easier because of it, right? So these are ideas that we are working towards. This is part of the path that we would like to take as a data science team in order to give you truly personalized marketing whenever you engage with Target. Next, I want to talk about message orchestration. We want to move from curating messages for optimal experiences. So we want to move from eligible to ideal content. We want to measure the relevance of each piece of content to find the ideal match for you. If we happen to have too many Halloween cardboard cat beds. We'd really like you to buy one. But if you don't have a cat, you're probably not gonna buy one. And if you just bought one last week, you're also probably not gonna buy one. So now we really gotta figure out who actually would want one of these things that we accidentally bought too many of, and we would really like to give you 50% off. Could you please take them off our hands and use them? But it's not always obvious what that is, and in our current systems, we don't have a lot of flexibility in how we do that. So one of the other dreams that we're gonna bring to life is we wanna be able to say, what's the relevance of this content? Here's my complicated, but we're gonna talk through it and it'll make sense in a second. You're all analytical people. So I've got 3 different guests and I have a relevancy score that's listed underneath each piece of content. For each of these 4 pieces of content, I can actually order them based on what I think you're most likely to be interested in. So this first guest perhaps has a toddler and has purchased toddler dresses. And so that seems like a really good option for them. However, not so big on the entertainment and not so big on patio furniture. For my second guest, they also have some really high content values where that's super relevant to them. For them, it's much more gaming focused, right? But there's 3 pieces of content that are really legitimate for that second guest, right? I can start to optimize. Maybe there's something I want to push more of because we have more inventory that we need to move, perhaps. Or there's something that I want to push more of because it's a deeper discount, and I know that this guest is particularly sensitive to discounts. There's a bunch of reasons why I might decide what I want to show to somebody. My last guest here isn't super excited about any of these things. So maybe the answer is don't send them anything. If you are signed up for Target's things, I bet you could tell me lots of messages that we've sent you recently. And I encourage you to do so because I love hearing about those examples. But our goal is to create more ease and more joy in however you want to shop at Target so that we can make that as easy as possible and make you feel as welcomed as possible while you're doing this work. Now, the last thing I have to talk about is probably more in line with a lot of the other talks that are happening today, and this is about privacy. There are more than 20 state laws that now enforce data minimization under comprehensive privacy laws. We have to legally follow these. Every single one of our data science algorithms has to have a variety of metadata associated with it so that we know which kind of data is being used in which model so that we can make sure that we're following the compliance laws in every single state starting the day that they go into effect, which is a very patchy system. So this is not for the weak, and there are a lot of different data science problems that are going to appear as we attempt to work around some of these very reasonable, very appropriate laws that are getting put into place. Next is the sensitivity versus private versus personal. Needs vary by individual. For some, gender may be private. For others, personal, right? Whether or not Target shows up and says something about you may be welcome or not, right? Depending on how much you care about that item. Next, in terms of bias and fairness, if you all were here last year, you got to hear Kathy O'Neill talk about her book, Weapons of Math Destruction. I cannot recommend it more highly. It is a fabulous book full of mathematical stories about how data science, and I'm not talking about GenAI, this is pre-GenAI, like how data science leads us to the wrong place. So as much as we're worried about GenAI leading us to the wrong place, even those classical data science models can do the same thing. And lastly, personal versus family privacy, right? I'm not helping you at all if somebody's trying to keep a secret and Target gave it away, right? Or even just if it makes something uncomfortable. Because who is in your household is not necessarily who is in your family, is not necessarily who you handed your phone to. And so these are all things that we need to be really respectful of for our guests because Target truly believes that you are guests. We want to invite you into our store. We want you to be happy. We want you to have a really good time shopping at Target. And we do really, really want you to pick up that pumpkin and put it in your cart and bring it home and have that joyful holiday season. So with that said, I'm going to stop there, but I would absolutely love each and every one of your questions. Yeah.
All right, just a sec. We'll get a mic in the room somewhere. Thank you. Got a lot of questions. Hi,
Great presentation.
Thanks.
I have a question on how you are generating content.
Yeah.
Are you letting AI help with that, or are you doing it yourself? And if you're letting AI, how do you make sure it doesn't go totally off the rails? Like mixing up cats and dogs is one thing, but like, hey, we think you may be a white supremacist, and this like might work really well for you. Like how do you handle that?
Yeah, really fair. So I'm going to answer a question that's a little bit tangential to that, but may also be in the audience. Target has a system called Think Tank, where we are checking to make sure that the data does not return into the ether. We have very strict negotiations and carefully set up systems so that whatever we put into our GenAI system never goes back into the wild. So there was a question actually in the last talk in this room of like, where would you put that personal information? We can actually put in some of that personal information into our LLM because there are data infrastructure teams making sure that that data retains its safety. That's not quite the answer you asked, so let me answer the question you asked. We are using generative AI models. One of our favorite things to do is to use GenAI to judge GenAI. Think about this as a high school class. You can answer your quiz, and what does your high school teacher do? You hand it to the other high school student next to you. Neither of you is very trustworthy, but having them grade your paper is certainly better than having you grade your paper. So one of the things that we tend to do a lot is we create algorithms within generative AI to judge the generative AI based on the high priority pieces we have. So for us, we have a very high creative integrity. Like the shadows need to be in the right place. The lighting all needs to look really good. That's part of Target's brand management. So there's a lot of that piece in there as well. One of the other things that we don't do is we don't generate humans. At the moment, it's a blanket expectation, like none of my team is going to generate images that have humans in them. And this is sort of designed to help make sure that we're not running off the deep end. Ultimately, everything that Target builds, they're responsible for. So there may be a lot of opportunities for human in the loop, right? So if we create something and then the algorithm says, I'm not super sure about that one, right? That might be a time for a human to give it a quick look and make sure that it's gonna be okay. Did I answer your question eventually?
All right, let's take a virtual question.
Yeah.
How do you track guests who shop in store but don't use the app or digital promos?
Yeah.
Is your analysis mainly app-based, or do you also include offline only customers?
Yeah. So our less engaged guests who maybe don't have an email address with us or don't shop online, if you are using the same payment type every time you come to Target, we will have a pretty good sense of who you are. We will give you a guest ID associated with that payment type. So we incorporate every guest that we can reasonably identify, we will use in these algorithms. So that does contain a really broad array. Pareto rule follows here, right? There's a lot of guests who shop not very often and a few guests who shop a whole bunch.
Hi, thanks for a very engaging talk, as always. I was more curious about kind of the cost benefits of going from micro segmentation to full personalization. Do you see associate benefits that offset all of the computational costs?
Yeah. So I'm a measurement fanatic. Everyone on my team knows this. If you can't measure it, it doesn't count. So ultimately, what we're going to end up doing is whatever we build will get heavily tested. And if it doesn't show incremental value over the simpler, easier option, we're not going to use it, right? The goal is to really keep it as simple as possible. But in many cases, we have seen that having that level of personalization does suggest better and better engagement over time. So on those situations, let me say this differently. We can manually create a more segmented system that tends to do better. So we have really good evidence that this should produce additional value. And if it doesn't, we'll do something else. It's a good question.
Yep, question here, and then we'll go to virtual.
Hi, thank you for a very nice speech.
Yeah.
You speak very well.
Thanks.
I was wondering about the customer side.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm weird, but personally, I really hate when I see ads that are AI. I could flag it out really fast. I use AI a lot, so I could see it. And also, the recommendation system, honestly, it's really frustrating. I bought one extension cord one time, and now the app thinks like, oh, I am rewiring my whole house.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's genuinely
you probably are.
frustrating, you
No,
know, and it just
you're
makes
right.
me actually not want to engage with that system. So,
Yes.
what is your data on customer satisfaction when it comes to
Yeah,
design?
absolutely. So one of the fabulous things about being a data scientist is that if you only give yourself positive credit, you're going to be in a world full of hurt. Right? Because you're going to end up with people fleeing your product, but you're only going to see the good stuff. So one of the things that we absolutely have to do when we think about the added value of any of these products is to have that balance of that negative side. So when we think about emails that we send you, if you decide to opt out of emails, that's a really strong signal that we've really annoyed somebody, right? We used to be able to look at email opens. That's no longer a valuable signal because Apple has turned off all of their email open information to the people who sent the emails. But there are always ways that we are going to work to track what is that negative impact that we're causing by our enthusiasm to show you the next best remodeling thing that for sure we believe that you want, because you might not actually want it. Yeah, it's really fair. And the goal is always in that measurement, how do you balance the good and the bad, and how do you make sure that you're measuring both sides? It's a great question.
All right, we got another virtual question.
Yeah.
You mentioned bias and fairness in algorithms.
Yeah.
How do you think about those issues in the system you build at Target?
Yeah. Bias and fairness at Target is one of my favorite topics. I bring it up to my teams on like a reoccurring basis. It's not the easiest, thing to sort of dig through and to make peace with. We can look at the difference between how we're engaging with items versus how we're engaging with guests. We can start to look at, for the demographic information that makes sense to look at, what is happening with that, what is happening across stores. So if I can associate you with a store, I can start to say, where are the big discounts going? Is that just because that's where the big spenders are, or are we doing something else, right? So there are things that we can do to investigate that, and that's something that is critical. Like you don't want to skip that, right? It's a good question.
All right, question right here.
Hi. So you talked a lot about the purchase events, but how do returns come into play for kind of the picture of the customer? Do you just assume that it's expected to happen at a certain percentage, or does it truly go back and affect kind of your customer profile based on your return activity?
Yeah. So it's a really good question. Certainly returns are meaningful, right? Actually, returns is a really great way to identify bad actors. So there's some, every once in a while somebody from security gets really interested in our algorithms, and we're like, oh God, we didn't make it for that, but that sounds great. Please find some bad actors with this. Certainly returns make a difference, right? And then what do we do when you return something? What do we do if you return something you didn't buy? Is that different than if your ID bought it and then you returned it? Is there some change in the way that we would want to incentivize future purchases? It's a really good question. I think that's all I'm going to say about that. But I think there's other questions.
Yep, we have time for one more question. I think there's several virtual, so I'm going to give them time.
Okay, this is more specific about the data retention policies.
Oh, fun.
How long do you keep customer-specific information for, or do you always use the information you collect about a customer for your analysis?
Yeah, so when we talk about information that you kept, you always means Target Corporation, right? There's nothing that my team is doing specifically that's different than what everyone else in Target is doing. Certainly for a lot of these, I'm going to not answer this question, by the way. I acknowledge that I'm not actually answering this question. We do need year-over-year differentiation, right? If you only show up once a year in mid-July and you buy something appropriate for a 2-year-old and then a 3-year-old and then a 4-year-old, right? Maybe there's something going on there that we can start to predict that you've got somebody's birthday that happens at that time of year, and therefore don't give you kids' toys all year round. You only care about kids' toys in July when your nephew gets old. There may be some pieces like that. So there are certainly year-over-year information associated with that, but I don't think I'm at liberty to talk about the specific retention policy.
All right, we got lots more questions, but unfortunately are out of time. So please find Samantha afterwards, and can we get another round of applause? Thank you so much for an engaging presentation.